Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the QT2 Systems, My Journey to Kona podcast series. My name is Reem Joshi, and I'm the content director for QT2 Systems. Today, I'd like to welcome our featured athlete, Damon Little, and his coach, Doug MacLean. Welcome, Damon. Welcome, Doug. Thanks for joining us today. All right, so Damon, we're going to start off with some questions for you, and then we'll turn things over to Doug after. So let's just start. When was your first triathlon?
I started triathlon in 2013. I decided I wanted to do a sprint triathlon. I didn't figure it could be that hard. At that point, I couldn't swim more than 25 yards without stopping. The longest run I had ever done was a 10K, and the only reason I did that is because it ran through my neighborhood. So got to the triathlon, the sprint, and it was a mass start, and everybody took off, and I was clobbered, climbed over, and I swore to God, if I made it through this, I was never getting back in this water ever again. I think my swim time was close to 14 minutes for 500 yards. So it took a while, but after it was over, reflecting on it, I had a blast and did several more sprints from there during that summer. Yeah.
All right. So you said that you hadn't swam, you ran a little bit. Did you have any biking background?
Yeah, I was, I raced bicycles mostly for quite some time, mountain bikes and road bikes. Yeah.
All right. So you had one thing going for you. That's good. It's a lot smart.
Yeah. And that's why I figured, well, how hard could it be? You know, if I can get through the swim, I can certainly run, and I know I could ride. So
right, if you can get through the swim. So all right. So you got through the swim, you finished that race. It excited you. You signed up for more. At some point, you moved on to Ironman. When was your first Ironman race?
It was in 2014. I signed up for Ironman Florida, and I had gone down at the end of 2013 to volunteer and to sign up.
Okay.
At that point, yep.
All right. So tell me about that race.
Well, when we got down there, the ocean was calm, just like a pool, and I thought, well, this is going to be great. It was going to be a wetsuit swim. I've had almost a year to get ready for that, so I was ready for it. Well, the morning of the race, I look out the balcony, and the rescue paddleboarders and kayaks were being flipped over by the currents and the waves and everything. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm never gonna make it through this. But I got my wetsuit on, went down there, and we were standing on the beach, and they had canceled the swim right at the very last second. So what was originally a sigh of relief turned into, oh my gosh, this isn't going to be my last Ironman. I'm going to have to do a full one. So, before I even took off, I knew that, I was going to be going somewhere else. So I made it through the Ironman Florida, the run and the bike, and immediately signed up for Texas, which was just a couple months after.
Right.
Went to there.
So were you working with Doug at this point for Ironman Florida?
I did. Yeah. I signed up with Doug at the very beginning of 2014. Yeah. Almost 8 years ago.
Okay.
Well, over 8 years ago now. Yep. Doug's been my only coach.
All right. That's good. Longevity.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. He doesn't know any better, right?
Oh, I don't know. See, something's working here. So,
Yeah.
All right. So you went Florida in 2014, Texas now in 2015, a few months later. Okay. So, all right. So Texas first, you got through it. They had the swim in Texas.
They did. The swim was rough there as well. For me anyway, ran into the side of the canal wall a couple of times and got beat up down there in the canal a few times, but made it through that. And overall had a really good time there. I think I was definitely in the top half of my age group, maybe in the top 20 at that point. So immediately got the bug for that, and then turned around and signed up for Chattanooga that same year as well.
Okay. So later in the year. So at what point now did qualifying for Kona become a goal?
I had done a couple of Ironmans to Texas, Chattanooga at least once, and probably Texas a second time. And I started getting closer and closer towards the front, but I guess it was 2016 in Chattanooga. I missed the Kona spot by like 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes. So I knew I was getting, to the pointy end of the spear. And that's when I, really started focusing on it at that point.
Okay.
And then I missed it twice by less than 3 minutes before
boy.
I finally got it. But there was a lot in between there too. I mean, I went to Argentina to race. I chased it. In hindsight, that might not have been a great idea, but I went to Lake Placid, went to Argentina, did probably Texas again.
I think about that Argentina trip legitimately like once or twice a month. And I just think like, poor Damon, he had this 24-hour trip. We thought it was going to be like maybe a little bit smaller field. It would work out. And then it just didn't. And we were like, oh, I was devastated for him on a personal level. I was like, oh my God, he's going to quit. This was awful. Like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah. People in South America are fast. So.
Yeah.
I probably won't go back to Argentina to race. But we didn't know. I mean, you gotta roll the dice.
Yep. You don't know unless you try. Yeah.
So, but you kept trying.
Kept trying.
All right. So what race did you qualify in?
Chattanooga again. I was quickly realizing that Chattanooga was the place that I needed to keep focusing on. The swim, obviously, being current assisted, and me not being a great swimmer, it kind of neutralizes things and gives me a chance to at least be in the group at the beginning of the bike. Whereas, like Texas, I was coming out of the water and I was already 10 minutes behind.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that Chattanooga was going to be where I had to go, keep focusing on. And fortunately, it's fairly close to me, so I could drive, so it wasn't that big a deal. Yeah.
So what year was that?
2019.
2019. Okay.
Yeah.
So Kona 2020 then. That
Right.
was the plan.
That was the plan.
All right. So you finished Chattanooga, you took a little time off, maybe regrouped, and then started training for Kona.
Yep.
And then the world changed.
Yep.
On you.
COVID came. Everything stopped.
Right. So when did you find out that you weren't going to be able to go to Kona that year?
It was mid to late summer, I think, when they finally said, hey, we're going to move this to February.
Okay.
Which I wasn't crazy excited about, trying to get ready for a hot race during the winter, but it had to be in February. It had to be in February.
All right. So you were trained. I mean, by midsummer, you were almost there. Yeah. Training was almost like you were.
We were in the middle of it.
Yeah. In the middle of it, you probably had all your plane tickets booked and, hotels and everything. You were all set to go.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So then it's deferred.
Yep.
Reset. Get ready for February. And then.
Canceled again. Yeah. I think February got canceled, if I remember correctly, fairly soon though. Because I don't think we were too far into training, if we had even started really Ironman training before we realized that February wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Right, I think we kind of just had a general sense of that's where things were going anyways. It was like, they can announce it in February and then we're like, come on, really?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So so February gets canceled. 2021.
2021, we're going.
2021. Okay.
We were pretty far into the build into 2021 before it got pulled. I mean, it was like late August, early September before we got the email saying, it's off again. And your choices are either going to St. George or in February of 2022, or you can defer to October of 2022. And I mean, I really had no desire to go to St. George. I mean, I would like to do St. George, but not in place of Kona. I didn't spend all those hours on my trainer, to go to St. George.
Yeah. So what did you do during all this time as these races are up and deferred and canceled? And, how'd you stay motivated through all of this?
I got into gravel riding a pretty good bit, did some mountain biking. I did the Unbound 200 in 2021. I also signed up for Unbound in 2020, but it was canceled as well. But I went ahead and did my own self-supported 200-mile gravel ride. So that kept me motivated and kept me training, at least on the bike portion. So, and we did spend a pretty good amount of time during the downtime, if I recall, doing some building on the run, spending some time running.
Yeah, there was a lot of how much biking do you need to not go crazy? Okay, we're gonna do that amount and everything else is gonna be swim and run. Yeah.
Yeah, for a while though, you couldn't swim either, right?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I live fairly close to a lake, so even when the pools were closed, I was swimming in the lake. When it got wet, weather got warm enough. But it was like Marches. I was swimming in March,
Okay.
and our pools didn't close, but maybe for a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some really interesting solutions when one of my athletes sent me a picture of him in a kiddie pool in his wetsuit with a bungee cord. I was like, oh my God, like this has gone way too far. This is really crazy. So I'm glad you didn't have to sink to that level.
Yeah.
Got out there in the lake. So, all right. So you're getting close now, but 2013 to 2019. I mean, to go from not knowing how to swim to then doing your first races and, finishing in the middle to slowly improving. How do you, what made the difference? How did you go from that, middle, the first one, okay, you didn't know, but once you got to Ironman, how'd you go from that middle of the pack to qualifying, do you think? What made the difference?
Doug draws up a pretty good roadmap on how to get better at triathlon. So that's a huge thing. And just mainly staying consistent. If I'm nothing else, I'm consistent. I don't take big breaks off of anything. If it's on my training peak schedule, then it pretty much gets done.
Damon is consistent and perfect with his execution to the point where it's boring for me. like that's the only way to describe it. It's just I'll say, okay, 3x12 minutes at 275, 285, 295. I see in the workouts it submits 275, 285, 296. And it'll be like, oh yeah, a little hot on that last one. Sorry. It's okay. It's amazing. The consistency and just the nailing the execution is really some of the best I've seen. And that kind of feeds into what he's saying, yeah.
Shows up every day.
Oh, absolutely.
To do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So it's happening soon.
Yes.
What are you most excited about?
Just going out, well, mainly just checking it off the bucket list first and foremost, but going out there and just seeing the spectacle of the World Championship. There's 2 days, obviously, this year. Fortunately for me, I get to race on Thursday with the women, so I'll be able to, watch the men's race and really enjoy Kona there without being, too stressed on for the whole thing. I can enjoy some of it as well.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that. I'm watching the men's races. Yeah.
All right. Anything that's making you nervous?
Getting sick, getting hurt, or my bike getting broken on the way out there is my biggest fears. I do have race anxiety pretty bad, even for 70.3s or smaller races. So I'm not looking forward to that during the taper weeks.
Yeah.
But, once the race starts, I'm fine. It's just
Right.
2 days before, 3 days before.
Yeah.
In fact, my family doesn't even go to most of the races with me. They're going to Hawaii, obviously, but just because I'm not fun to be around because of the anxiety. So I'm not looking forward to that.
That reminds me though, there was a quote this morning. Slow Twitch did an interview with Cody Beals, real good pro out of Canada. And he was talking about pre-race nerves. And he said something that 100% resonates with me. And I think it applies here to what you just said. He said, they're talking about being nervous before a race. And what he said is, if you're not nervous before races, that means it's time to stop racing.
Right.
And that absolutely happened to me in my career. There got a point where I just didn't care. I was like, oh, whatever, it's a race. And that's when it's time to stop. So point being, if you're nervous,
it's good.
It's good. It means you care. It means you're going to get out there and you're going to bust your butt. So yeah. I like to hear that. Yeah.
You take that nervousness and you channel it into the positiveness of the race.
Yeah.
It's funny. I had this race that I was doing, local race I do all the time, but I won it most of the years I've done. I was standing in line waiting to get my timing chip. And I'm nervous. I don't know. It's silly, but I'm nervous and I'm there. And this person in line before me was like, oh, you seem kind of nervous. She's like, is this your first race? I'm like, no, I've been racing quite a bit. She's like, oh, it's mine. And I was sitting there going, wow, I'm emanating this nervousness, but it's like, I was fun. And it all goes away. As soon as that goes off, right?
Yep.
It just goes away. And then you bring it positive. And
Yeah.
I can see you're going to have a smile on your face the whole way. That's going to be good. So, all right. One last question for you. What piece of advice would you give to someone who's trying to qualify for Kona?
Oh, that's easy. Hire Doug.
Okay.
I think his resume speaks for itself.
Yeah.
That, and just again, getting back to the consistency thing, small little improvements every day, over time add up.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. You're not trying to hit home runs, just a lot of singles, and they add up. For sure.
Yeah. All right, Doug, let's turn to you for some questions.
All right.
You've talked about this some, but describe Damon as an athlete.
Damon, like I said before, he's boring in the best way possible. Because there's no drama with him. He takes care of his workouts, and if he can't, he's kind of logical about how to address the situation. You know what I'm saying? There's no panic. It's just got to move this, can't do this. I'm injured. How do we adjust it? And it goes back to what I see with my most successful athletes is there's this back and forth of both honesty and trust. And it's honesty and trust both ways, right? Because I trust him to kind of take care of business. I trust him that he's not going to do anything stupid. It's in push injuries or anything like that. And I know he's going to be honest with me if this is hurting or that is hurting. And if I say, hey, we got to do deep water running for 3 weeks, okay, he's not going to sit there and grumble about it because he knows I'm looking out for his long-term future. And he's just always able to do that. He always keeps his eyes, focused on present execution, but he has that North Star 6 months down the road, a year down the road. And you really don't kind of achieve what he achieved and hit the growth that he hit without having that mindset. And it's an absolutely 100% necessary mindset. You have these big goals, but they're not necessarily, you're not thinking about them every day during your workouts, but they're your North Star for your overall structure. And, you're not going from mid-pack anonymous guy in 2013, 2014 to front of the pack Kona qualifier in 5 years, unless you have that mindset. And that's what he did. And I think it's really admirable. He just takes care of business, and there's really no no hiccups along. I mean, everybody has hiccups along the way. Their hamstring hurts, but you know what I mean. No real hiccups along the way. And then it's shown through even more during this whole COVID thing. Like, he's been busting his butt for Kona. And it's one thing, like, you bust your butt for Kona, you wait 7, 8, 9 years, right? And then you qualify, and then you go race 6 months later. And that's nice, and that's great, and that's like admirable. He qualifies this one thing he's wanted for so long, and then he has to wait and it's not like the second time, so it can be like, I've been there before, I'm in no rush to go back. It's like, it's his first time, and it just keeps getting pushed back and pushed back. And I'm sure, and he never really verbalized it to me, but I can guarantee you in his head, he was like, is this ever going to happen? Is this really worth waiting for?
Right.
You know, and like, but he never, you know, it never came out, and he never kind of really let it bubble too much to the surface and let it get too much in the way. Like, he nailed all of his training, even when everything was uncertain. And that's really hard to do. Like, when you're training for a race that you don't even know if it's going to happen for another 2 years, 3 years, and you're still putting in those 14, 16-hour weeks. And like I said, Damon, you know, like he said, Damon's a biker. And when he's doing 15-hour weeks and 11 of those hours are swim and run, like, that's probably not very fun. I mean, it's fun in a sense if you like training, but everybody likes to do what they're good at, right? And so just all of it comes together. It's pretty impressive in terms of the prep. And I think he really kind of personifies that whole idea of, I think a lot of people really need to internalize, train your weaknesses, race your strengths. You know, a lot of people say it, not a lot of people do it, because they want to train their strengths, right? They're like, oh, I'm really good at this workout, so I just want to do it all the time. Damon's like, yeah, I know I'm good at it, but you know what I need to work on is running. So I'm just going to run a lot. And God bless you, Damon. I tried to modify your running stride. It never quite worked. Damon's a bit of a shuffler, but you know what? Eventually you come to the conclusion, like, the shuffling, like, it kind of works in Ironman. Like, we're not trying to make him a world champion miler, right? If you can shuffle an Ironman, you're gonna have a pretty good run split, because even these people who are they can run, you know, they look like Marinda Carfrae when they're running a 5K, right? And then you see them run an Ironman, and that run form isn't doing them a whole lot of good if they're standing on the side of the road, you know, that kind of a thing. But that's not Damon. He's not standing on the side. He's just, and it's pretty great, and it works. It's almost, I don't remember, a throwback, like a Kate Snow type of thing. Like, you look at her and you're like, what is she doing? And then all of a sudden she's zipping by you on the run with a 252, and you're like, what just happened? You know? So that was great. You know, we trained that stuff, and then, like he said, you know, we realized Chattanooga, that's a course that's really made for him. And I don't say that in a negative sense. Like, it's not like, oh, Damon's not the strongest swimmer. Like, he's an adult onset swimmer. Like, if you're not growing up swimming, you know, and that's also not to say he didn't work it. Damon busted his butt in the pool, and he has come a long, long way. So don't think anything otherwise. But when it comes to it and you want something, you want to stack the odds, you want to stack the deck in your favor as much as you can. And if that means going and racing at Chattanooga, do it. If it means going and racing, if you're some like amazing climber on the bike, go race Placid, you know. But Chattanooga was his course, and we knew we could make it happen there, and we just focused on it. And God bless him, he made it happen, you know. So it's pretty great. Yeah. Anyways, that was long. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was great. But that brings me to, we didn't talk about this at Chattanooga. When did you realize that you had a spot?
It wasn't until I had gotten back to my hotel room and checked my phone. You know, I had plenty of texts on there saying, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then I checked the results. And at that point I was in third, but because it was a rolling start, people still had a chance to catch up. So I actually ended up in fourth place that day. Stayed up all night doing math. Well, the first thing I did was text Doug. I was like, oh my God, I think we finally did it. And called my wife and just had a complete meltdown and stayed up all night trying to do math, how many spots there were going to be. And the years prior, there was always 4 spots. So I was pretty certain that I got a spot. Well, it turns out I go down there to the slot allocation and the awards the next morning. In my age group, they had only allocated 3. So I was like, I can't believe this. I was sure I got a spot.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden I don't. So
Right.
there was a period of panic at that point, and we were all trying to do math and figure out, what had happened. And apparently, in my age group, I'm not sure if a lot of people didn't start that were registered, but the numbers got skewed somehow, or maybe a lot of people wore wetsuits, so they were taken out of the equation. But as it turned out, the guy who won didn't take his spot, so then I got a roll down spot. But then there was another age group that didn't have any, which automatically sent another one over to us. So I was in at that point, either way. Without the roll down, I still would have got a spot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty dramatic.
Nerve-wracking though.
Yeah. Since Snow was
Real
there, we
roller
were trying to
coaster.
do math. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was tough.
Yeah. And I'm sure that your brain was doing great math after that day, after all that effort.
Right. Yeah, when I didn't sleep all night, but I was fairly certain when I woke up the next day I was going to have a spot. So I was pretty shocked when I got down there to see that it wasn't so certain anymore.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm glad it worked out for you.
Yeah.
That's good. So Doug, tell me, you're telling the story and you're like, David has a work ethic. He's got the mindset. When did you realize that him qualifying was a real option?
It's kind of like 2 stages, right? Because right when he signs up with me, he has this tremendous cycling background. I see his testing numbers and you can see there's an engine there, right? And so you're like, okay, I can do something with this, right? It's just a question of how long is it going to take? Because as someone without a running background and as an adult onset swimmer, it can take a while because you can have a great engine, but if you don't have kind of the muscle memory for these other sports, it's only going to translate so much, right? So I knew the raw material was there, but I couldn't have told you if it would have taken 2 years or 4 years or 10 years, right? Well, 10 years would have been a bit long, but so that was right off the bat. But then as he was saying, he started creeping up, and that first time he's within 2 or 3 minutes of a Kona slot at Chattanooga, like, come on, it's pretty obvious. What was that in 17?
No,
16?
16, yeah. 16
Yeah,
and, 16 and 17 I both got within a couple of minutes.
Like it doesn't take Kropelnicki to see, if somebody's within 2 minutes of a Kona slot, it doesn't take Kropelnicki to be like, oh, I think they have Kona potential. It's pretty obvious. Yeah, it's pretty. And then, but that's how this sport is, then it takes him 3 more years, right? Yeah. Because
6 more races.
Yeah, that first 95% improvement comes pretty quick. And then that last 5% improvement, you got to really want it, and you got to be patient and you got to put in the work and you just got to stick to it and trust that you're going to get there. And he did that. So, yeah.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. This year in Kona, my tracker is going to be like, all these people. Yeah. That's awesome. All right. One last question for you, Doug. What piece of advice would you give to someone who's trying to qualify?
Same thing I say to everybody. Yeah. Stay healthy and stay consistent and just trust what you're doing. And that's what it comes down to. Like, as long as your plan isn't terrible, honestly, as long as you trust it, that's a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. Trust it, you stay consistent, you stay healthy, and and progressive overload, I guess, obviously, it's got a good chance of working out. It's nothing fancy. It's just showing up every day.
Don't give up.
Yeah. Show up every day and things usually work out. Because most people are not willing to show up every day, and that's what it comes down to. Yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you to both of you. This was super interesting, and good luck.
Thank you, Reem. I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Thanks, Damon.
Thanks, Doug.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Night.